Please have patience because one of us, very respected speaker, is on their way. So please have a few more minutes of patience. Thank you. Good morning to all the dignitaries present over here. It gives us immense pleasure and joy to bring Parivartan 22 to in front of you. Myself, Munshi Nadeem Ahmed,
and Malika Singh.
On behalf of ConXerv, are honored to be the host for this session. We welcome you all in this vibrant event of sustainability. The Paris Agreement on electromobility brings together individuals and collective commitments to increase electromobility to level compatibility with a less than 2-degree pathway. Transport contributes almost one quarter, that is 23% of the current global energy-related greenhouse gas emissions, and is going faster than any other energy end-use sector. Limiting the global temperature increase below 2 degrees Celsius requires changing this transport emission trajectory, which involves the development of an integrated electromobility ecosystem. To further augment our knowledge, we look forward to Parivartan 22 on the theme, scope and challenges of the electric vehicle industry. Discussions will focus.
ওই আমার তো আমার কানে নেই তো তোমার কথা আমি শুনতে পাচ্ছি তো আমাদের কথা কানে চলে গেছে
Discussions will focus on the ecosystem and the materiality of the EVs through a multi-stakeholder lens.
Few areas in the world of clean energy are as dynamic as the electric car market. Sales of electric vehicles doubled in 2021 from the previous year to a new record of 6.6 million. The global market value of electricity for EV charging is projected to grow over 20 folds, reaching approximately 190 billion US dollars by 2030. Pressure on the supply of critical materials will continue to mount as road transport electrification extends to meet net zero emissions. The supply of heavy minerals such as lithium would need to rise by up to 1/3 by 2030 to match the demand for EV batteries to satisfy the decarbonization pledges.
Now, as the tone is rightly set and our enthusiasm is high, let's move forward and invite our respected dean, Dr. Professor Sutapa Pati, for her introductory remark. The Dean of School of Sustainability, Exine University, with the help of a committed and dedicated team, she has worked diligently and been instrumental in helping the university and school to reach new heights. We are excited to invite Professor Dr. Sutapa Pati on stage to address the audience.
Thank you so much, Nadeep. Respected father, respected dignitaries on dais, my dear students. Today morning I was thinking we are today witnessing 8th Parivartan, and not before long we were inaugurating the first one, and I was remembering in the first Parivartan, some of the students had asked questions related to electric vehicle. And at that time, it looked such a nascent idea. And within this 8th Parivartan, we are actually having a multi-stakeholder dialogue on that. With that, on behalf of Father Vice Chancellor, our administration and School of Sustainability, it's an immense pleasure to welcome all of you to this campus, to this beautiful campus and School of Sustainability for the Parivartan, which is based on multi-stakeholder dialogue on the concept of electric mobility. Firstly, welcome Mr. Vikas Gupta. I'm so happy to. Now, if we look at the profile of his organization, which he has led, we all understand that it's so difficult to enter this market at a very nascent stage when policies are not ready, when the ecosystem is not ready. And as an organization, sir, you have led it to and I'm sure you have stories of challenges and a lot of good successes till now. And he's being recognized. He has been called by multiple states to discuss, how he can now lead the national agenda. So thank you so much for giving, our students and university the time. Next, Mr. Samdarshi. I am fortunate to have taught him when he was in BM, and I always refer to him if you have to talk. He held multiple positions of responsibility. And one word which describes Samdarshi, if I remember, and I remember him very fondly, is responsible. He was such a responsible person, and he has given so much to this institution. And I'm so happy with Tata Motors and in the field of sustainability leading net zero. Why I said responsible? Because he's also working in a responsible value chain, And so who better to lead than Samdarshi? Thank you so much, Samdarshi. I was so surprised that he's coming, and it's nice to get back in touch. And thank you again for inspiring us. Miss Ashwini Balasubramaniam, welcome, ma'am. And from a faraway land, but an Indian working there, leading from the front. Congratulations to you first. And also, we would love to hear the international perspective, how things are moving. So that is, and again, as I say welcome, I also say congratulations to you. Next, we have Dr. Sanjeev Kumar. We wanted something from the policy makers' perspective, and also because there are some institutions who have taken forward to involve the electric mobility for the mass contact program. And I'm sure Dr. Sanjeev, who is a passionate environmentalist, who that perspective, And lastly, I would like to congratulate ConXerv under the leadership of Professor Tomagno. This is, it is, I think earlier I would say mission of School of Sustainability, but today I say it is a, biggest responsibility of institutions like us to create a platform where, multi-stakeholders could come and discuss. We help in research in this. Ecosystem is poised at a very, turning point in India. There's matters of risk to be handled related to electric mobility. There's matters of transitioning at a bigger scale, and us, like academic institution like us, should create that platform for multiple stakeholders to come and discuss some of the very challenging issues that we'll be facing. And the discussion that I have had with my automotive friends is there is an honest effort this time. And believe me, we don't have a second chance anymore. We have, as a civilization, our generations have made prior mistakes, but there is no second chance anymore. So I think we have to gear up, and looking at the enthusiasm, I think we are ready for it. Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am, for those encouraging words.
Now, to proceed further, we will be proceeding for the lamp lighting ceremony. I would request all the dignitaries, including the Dean ma'am, to proceed for the lamp lighting ceremonies and move forward in the event. Thank you to all the dignitaries. Please take your seats. It was really an auspicious moment.
I forgot someone very dear, so I came back again. Dear Anamaya, he's our own student. What a lovely, morning to have met him. He was someone who in class would always ask the most insightful, and the most difficult questions, and a very curious mind. So Anamaya, welcome so much. He's our dear. Effort for us that he's moderating the session today. Thank you.
We now request Professor Father Anthony Raj S.J., Registrar, XIM University, to come and address the gathering.
Respected Dean, Professor Dr. Satapapati, respected dignitaries on the dais, faculty colleagues, Dr. Tamogna Acharya, faculty coordinator for ConXerv, my dear students, a very warm welcome to the 8th edition of Parivartan. First of all, my gratitude and congratulations to the School of Sustainability in sustaining your efforts in making us, all of us, aware, starting with the academic community of XIM University and the larger population of this contemporaneous need be together in our effort to make this one planet that we have sustainable. Now, coming to the particular topic, my congratulations and gratitude to the functional committee of the School of Sustainability, ConXerv, for putting this event together and especially choosing a topic that is very, very relevant, wherein you have brought in, when I look at the speakers of the day, you have brought in various perspectives. And it is with a lot of expectation that I enter into this event today. Now, as a stakeholder, I am part of this event as a consumer and as a concerned citizen of the world. Now, when I talk about consumer, it is with much joy that I welcomed the Odisha electric vehicle policy of 2021. Our state was one of the first in the country to come up with a policy on electric vehicles. And possibly one of the first owners of the electric scooter was one of our own professors, Professor Narayan Sarangi. And we brought in that Ola scooter into the campus. I was, novelty, see. So I said, how about owning one? Because I already had bought a cycle to reduce my weight and things like that. And therefore, for me, this was something new. And when our smart city introduced 10 e-buses and 50 e-rickshaws in July this year, again, I was very happy. Now, as I want, as a consumer, as I said, as a concerned citizen of the world, to move into e-mobility from that of internal combustion engine, ICE to EV. And when I see the excitement, not only in our own state, in our country, but across the world, and especially in Germany, which produces most of the internal combustion engine vehicles, they have moved far ahead. My excitement also is tempered with the concerns that I have. Like, for example, with the recent events of, electric scooters, getting caught in fire and things of that sort. So how are we going to, for example, I have this concern, I just put it before you as an introductory address. How are we going to balance out the generation assets, because still we are dependent on fossil fuels. How are we going to balance out the generation assets with the demand assets? For example, the EV chargers, heating and cooling systems, the lighting, and so on. And how are we going to reduce? There is a concern expressed that even though we do not add to the air pollution that already exists there, but the global warming potential from electrical vehicle production is about twice that of a conventional vehicle. How are we going to address that? Or for that matter, the use of finite critical minerals and rare earth minerals that are used in the production of electric vehicles. How are we going to balance out that? And therefore, possibly our conversations will not only deal with the scope, but also the challenges that this one sustainable option, gives to us. And therefore, when we talk about sustainable options and solutions as that of the electric mobility, electric vehicles, we need to take into consideration the affordability, the availability, the accessibility, especially living as we are, still in rural India, the attractiveness and the awareness, overall awareness of the sustainable option and solution. I'm sure our conversations during the course of the day, especially with the domain experts and the practitioners from the field, will add to the knowledge potential that is already there, the capital that already our academic community possesses in Exam University, and it will take us forward. Thank you once again for having me with you, and God bless us all.
Thank you, Father, for your kind and motivating words. Now I take this opportunity to invite the faculty coordinator of ConXerv, Professor Dr. Tamugna Acharya, on stage to share his introductory comments on this occasion.
Thank you so much. Respected Father Registrar, respected Dean, School of Sustainability, dignitaries on the dais, and all the participants of today's event, Parivartan, 8th version of Parivartan. So please put up your hand and I completely agree when Professor Dr. Shudhabapati was mentioning that it feels like just yesterday that when we had the first Parivartan in the old campus. So we have walked a long way, and this is the 8th version, so that this gives us immense pleasure that we have been able to keep it up. And when I look at the theme of this word Parivartan, so I was just reflecting that it is something that is all about change. And isn't that we are experiencing a huge change in the mobility sector. Interestingly, the mobility which happened was electric vehicle, but somehow it was replaced by the internal combustion engine. And now once again we are going back to the electric vehicle, and that is something which is really interesting. Why? Because remember, there are three major drivers globally which is pushing forward this electric vehicle agenda. One is that definitely the volatile price of the fuels, right? Second part is that the commitment of all the countries towards the net zero. And third, and probably is the most important aspect, is that air quality. Like every winter, like November to December, if we go to Delhi NCR region, and even if you are just landing from the flight, so it is just covered by the dark, thick smog. And it has been shown that a large portion also is contributed by the vehicles. I mean, when people talk about that directly, indirectly we are emitting somewhere else to generate the electricity. But then the first thing that I give, the input that at least the air quality will be improved. We can work on it. We can move towards charging from the renewable sources, right? We can also go for more efficient batteries. We can also look forward more innovations, but then it has to get started. It has to get started. And when we were deliberating on that, what should be the potential topic of Parivartan 8, then we were brainstorming. Then I remember the conversation with the dean. Then she told that Exos, School of Sustainability, should talk about electric vehicles. So with these few words, I'm sure that we are going to have a very rich discussion. We have all the experts from the different backgrounds and different industries, from civil societies, from the policy aspects. So we would like to listen to them and then finding out that what should be done for the future. And one anecdote before I finish, 4 or 5 years back, somebody asked that why you're not buying any vehicles. I thought that I don't want to add up any air pollution. So once the electric vehicle is more common, I'll buy one. So I think the time has come. And I would like to also remind you that there will be 2 electric vehicles on display outside near to the International Center. So I would invite you once the event is over. So please go and visit, get familiarized with the electric vehicles, And let's make this event very successful. Thank you so much. Really look forward.
Thank you, sir, for your informative speech. Now, I would like to introduce our esteemed moderator, Mr. Anamaya Chaturvedi. It has been more than 2 years since Anamaya joined KPMG. He has collaborated with the ESG team to create solutions such as the decarbonization plan, reporting, and ESG strategy. He holds a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and a master's degree in sustainability management from XIM University. I would now invite our respective moderator to introduce the speakers and carry forward the event.
Before proceeding to the event, I would also like to present our respective moderator with the saplings as a token of gratitude from our school and also from ConXerv. Thank you for this event. Now, the stage is all yours for the moderator. So, yeah, please.
Good morning, everyone. It gives me immense joy to be invited back to this. And thank you to School of Sustainability, Sudhapa ma'am, Professor Miri, the Mogna sir, Vigrant sir, Father Anthony. And while I was thinking of setting the context for the event today and talking about electric vehicles, it should not miss us that we think about contextualizing everything. The emergence of electric vehicles and why is there an immense push on transitioning to electric vehicles should be the first question that we ask ourselves. Over the recent decade or so, we've seen how climate change has plagued all of us. We've seen the drastic effects of climate change in terms of extreme weather events and more common occurrence of them. While we have also seen investors putting up a lot of pressure on the organizations to do better on their overall ESG perspective, we are seeing that organizations which have traditionally been more emission intensive transition towards technologies that help reduce their emissions and overall help in mitigating climate change. Why are electric vehicles important for all of us though? And why is the transition so important? While it is said that the manufacturing of electric vehicles traditionally involves more emissions, we are looking at the final lifetime emissions of the vehicle. And we see that over the lifetime of electric vehicle, it contributes to significantly lesser emissions as compared to a conventional IC. We are also seeing that as grid decarbonization happens, to meet as countries try to meet their climate targets, as organizations try to meet their climate targets, this will also impact the manufacturing emissions as well as the driving emissions of the electric vehicles. While there's also an important focus on the overall tailpipe emissions of the vehicles, we see that electric vehicles perform better than conventional internal combustion engine vehicles. We've also seen that over the last year, India submitted their renewed NDCs, in which one of the pledges achieving net zero by 2070. As India adopts these renewed targets, it is important that the transport sector, which contributes to significant emissions of the emissions that are coming from the energy sector, that electric vehicles help smoothen this transition, help India achieve these targets. We've also seen that through policies such as the National Electric Mobility Mission Plan and the FAME scheme, which have helped enable an infrastructure, develop an infrastructure which enables both the manufacturers as well as the consumers in this transition. We've also seen that states have started taking initiatives on their own. States such as Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Chandigarh, Goa, Gujarat, Karnataka, Maharashtra, among some other states, which have taken some specific directed EV initiatives to help build indigenous manufacturing capacity as well as increase the consumer accessibility for electric vehicles. With this context, I'd like to introduce all our speakers. As Sutapa ma'am also gave some context and introduced the speakers. Our first speaker for the day is Ms. Ashwini Balasubramaniam. She joined Harley Davidson in January 2022 as Group Chief Engineer. In this role, she has led all advanced engineering aspects, including test and reliability engineering, core engineering, and innovation teams. Ms. Ashwini is also responsible for delivering motorcycle leading innovation and technology roadmaps across the motorcycle portfolio. Her career exhibits extensive experience in leadership, leading global engineering and sales and marketing teams. She has also recently served as Global Director for Market Intelligence and Strategy at Martin Reed International, before which she served as Engineering Manager for ZF North America, Vehicle Development, and New Technology Team Leader for Toyota, the NVH Engineer at Bosch. Ms. Ashwini holds a BSc in Mechanical Engineering from India and MSc in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Michigan. She is also a Certified Sustainability Excellence Associate. Automotive News has also named her a Rising Star in 2019. She also holds a patent on headliners and vehicles with improved speech transmission characteristics. Ms. Ashwini is a member of the Society of Women Engineers, serving as co-chair for the Professional Development Conference for 2017 and 2018. She also serves on the advisory board for the Center for Automotive Diversity, Inclusion and Advancement and Automotive Women's Alliance Foundation. She is very passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and is committed to supporting women in each of their professional and personal goals. We welcome you, Ms. Ashwini, and we are very thankful that you could take out the time today amongst different separate geographies and interact with our batch. Ms. Ashwini, thank you.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right, I'm going to try to share my slides here. So if someone can kind of at least confirm you can see my screen, okay, that would be super helpful. Just hang on one second. Are my slides coming through okay? Yeah? Okay, thumbs up. Okay.
Ma'am, you are audible.
Okay, and you can see my slides?
Yes, you can see your slides.
Okay, okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you so much to the ConXerv team and the university here for having me. It's always a pleasure for me to talk to folks from my homeland, my motherland. It's always dear to me. You know, I was thinking about this topic as I was working with Abhishek and thinking through what we should talk about. You know, I'm so glad to see that the university is focused on the sustainability as a topic as part of your MBA, which, you know, is not something that we see everywhere. So I think you are creating a unique position for yourselves. But growing up in India, I remember growing up in mostly in Chennai, Mumbai, Hyderabad. I've moved around quite a bit. But in all of those places, I've always had issues with water scarcity, with electricity, and all of those things, right? And going into mechanical engineering as a female was a very, very unlikely profession for a female to choose 20 years ago. So I think with all that background in mind, when I've had the opportunity to work in the automotive field and focus on sustainability, I lapped it up with both my hands because I'm absolutely passionate about the topic. So with that being said, I hope this is more of an interactive session. Everything's still coming through okay on your end?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You're audible, point.
Okay, very good. So I just want to give you an overview of what I'd like to cover for today. So we have sustainability. Obviously, it's a very broad topic, but we will focus today on the environmental connection. Some of you already kind of spoke about air pollution, but I want to touch on it as a global health concern, and talk a little bit about where the automotive industry is moving, especially globally. Where are we moving? What are some of our blind spots? This doesn't get enough attention, and we should absolutely talk about that. And what other options should we keep in our playbook? Is the answer only electric vehicles? What else should we be considering? And you folks, as the next generation leaders, what can you do to move this forward? So we'll talk about all of this. And like I said before, I'm looking forward to a very interactive session here. So stop me anytime if you have any questions, okay? So I always like to start off when we talk sustainability, just to kind of level set. I'm sure you all have seen the 3 pillars around the ESG. So obviously we have environment, economic, and social. So at the heart of it, sustainability is obviously about creating an equitable environment, right? So equitable environment, equitable society, equitable access for everybody to economic means as well. So at the heart of it, we're trying to create equitable and equal opportunity and access to all of these 3 things for anybody that lives on the face of the earth. So today we'll focus mostly on the environment, but the social and the economic part of it is also very, very, very important. If we don't have a holistic approach, the environment alone cannot succeed, if that makes sense. So we'll talk a little bit about air pollution and the numbers behind it as well. So this is a statistics by the World Health Organization. As you can see, there are about 7 million deaths every year, as the World Health Organization is projecting. And it obviously is a huge, huge environmental risk to health, right? So it can cause stroke, it can cause heart disease, it can manifest in the form of lung cancer, it can cause other forms of respiratory diseases, including asthma. And if you look at the overall global clean air for health and the deaths associated with it, obviously some of the developing countries like ourselves are starting from an inherent disadvantage, right? So if we look at the 7 million deaths every year, over 2 million is coming just from the Southeast Asian region. So air pollution is not just an environmental crisis, it's also a health crisis. So if we don't address it, we will end up having an environmental health crisis as well on our hands. And like I said, countries like ours, like India, that are in the Southeast Asian regions, we are a developing nation, which means we need more energy consumption. We need to be able to have access to more power in order to achieve our industrial goals, our overall GDP goals. So we are starting from a point of inherent disadvantage. So there's actually more work that countries like ourselves need to do compared to some of the developed countries in the world, if that makes sense. And then we kind of already touched on this in the introduction, I think. So in terms of air pollution, we all know that the greenhouse gases, the emissions, the greenhouse gases are the biggest contributor. And if we look at overall distribution of the emissions by sector, as we already talked, the transportation sector is one of the major contributors, right? So about 43%, so a little less than half is contributed by the transportation sector. Now, this is not just automobiles. It includes air freight, it includes air travel, sea travel, railroad, all of that, right? So we have to keep that in mind when we're looking at transportation, that it's not just four-wheelers on roads. So in addition to that, you obviously have other sectors that are also contributing. So if you want to make an overall improvement to air pollution, you need a holistic approach to address all of them. So all of these different sectors have to come together. But we are in the transportation sector, so we should do our part, right? So we want to focus on that right now. So this is a projection of where the global automotive industry is headed. So as you can see from this chart, hopefully you can still see my screen. The projection by 2040 is that we will be around 100 million units globally for four-wheelers, automotive, right? Out of those 100 million units, the projections today are looking like it's going to be a little over 50%. Is going to be dominated by battery electric vehicles, right? Pure battery electric vehicles. There is also your hybrid vehicles in the mix, fuel cell and plug-in hybrids, but majority, the projection is that battery electric vehicles will dominate. It's not a surprise, I'm sure, to all of you, because if you look at the pledges that each of the automakers are making, the major ones, especially in China, in Europe and in the US, all of them are making electric vehicle pledges, right? So, and I see that same trend in India as well. So there, it's not a surprise that the projections are showing a huge dominance by battery electric vehicle. I also wanted to touch a little bit on what we're seeing in terms of policy by country. So obviously the electric vehicle success doesn't just depend on the technology. There's a lot more to it, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. As this graphic shows you, the top half of the graphic is representing all the countries that are basically focusing on banning internal combustion engines from their countries, right? And everything at the bottom is focusing mostly on net zero emission pledges. Now, as sustainability professionals, you have to ask yourself, and I ask myself and my organization this every day, are we asking the right question? Are we really taking the right step by saying no internal combustion engine? Is that the real demon? Or is the demon the fuel that goes into the internal combustion engine? What is the actual demon? Are we asking the right question? The internal combustion engine has been around for more than a century. It's probably one of the most efficient machines created and developed by man. So before we just abandon that, we need to really ask ourselves those hard questions. And I tend to favor more of the net zero emission pledges because I think that governments should be in the business of moderating and policing the outcome, not necessarily the technology. I think the technology that is required to achieve those outcomes needs to be left up to the individual companies and the inventors, right? That's just my opinion. And as you can see, the United States is not on here, which is a little disheartening for me, but I think with this new administration, we're on our way to up our game when it comes to transitioning to more renewable sources of energy as well. So like I said, you know, with the electrification of vehicles, it's not just the technology that needs to be delivered by the automaker. You have a lot of other challenges that the industry faces right now that need to be resolved through a partnership in multiple ecosystems in order for this to actually become a reality. So as you can see, 50% of the consumers are skeptical about whether there'll be enough charging infrastructure, right? The charging infrastructure is not something that's in place right now. And at the pace they're going, we're not sure that we can meet our targets for even 2025 or 2030 at this point in time. The management of power grid, right? So we don't talk about this enough. I, as a child, have experienced unreliable electricity in India. So when we talk about electric vehicles and burdening the electric grid, we really need to think about that seriously. And unless the policies and the infrastructure goes in place, just having the electric grid will only increase the social disparity as well, because that will mean only the affluent people will be able to afford the electric vehicles because they will have access to more reliable power sources, and the less affluent people will not be able to do that. So you will only increase the societal divide that already exists in our country. The global and regional regulations, we just took a look at it, right, in the slide before. They're not all uniform. They're not all consistent. And sometimes they seem to swing in different directions depending on which party is in power. And that's not helpful either, right? So that doesn't help when it especially comes to infrastructure. The cost to design and build these vehicles is also paramount. And the range anxiety for customers is real. That needs to be overcome as well. And then the second life and recycling of batteries. This last one here around finding partners with experience in electrification, we are seeing this in the automotive industry globally right now. The automotive industry, as you can imagine, is very, very competitive, very cutthroat. But like never before, you have automotive manufacturers coming together, collaborating, because no one company has the resources, no one company has the technology or the capital to make electric vehicles a true success. So they are, I wouldn't say they're struggling, but they are working through several challenges because they need to then figure out how to differentiate themselves from the competition if they're cooperating, right? So that's another big challenge as well. I also want to talk a little bit about, the blind spots of the electric vehicles. I know the advisor for this conference had talked about how we shouldn't stop ourselves, without by concerning with the electric power grid and how that's not dirty. I think it's important to make progress, but not at the cost of creating unintended consequences, right? So it's important that you as sustainability professionals are aware of the unintended consequences that we're creating as we go on this mad ride and mad rush of switching to electric vehicles. So the first one, so the raw material for all the batteries, it's not coming from any different process than the fossil fuels. We still got to mine. And if you have kept up with the news, we just saw a significant increase in cost for raw lithium today, which is going to put a big dent in the cost of batteries. The targets for the batteries is to get down to at least $55 to $65 per kilowatt hour. But with the increase in lithium, that's going to be a big challenge to achieve. And mining is not an environmentally friendly process. So because you're switching to electric doesn't mean you are doing good for the environment, just to keep that in mind. This is a hard chart to probably read on the screen, but what I wanted you to understand is when you look at electricity generation across the world, except for those countries that you see in blue, everywhere else, electricity is generated through fossil fuels, mostly coal-generated electricity. The only two orange spots that you see are France and Ukraine. These two countries rely on nuclear power. And I wish we had a completely different topic on just nuclear power. It's a big passion of mine, but we don't have time to get into that today. But without making this blind spot work holistically, the industry on the power grid side and the automotive industry working together, we will just shift the problem of emissions from the car to the power grid. So we have to absolutely be conscious of that as well. And then the battery waste. If you think about all the batteries, it's hard enough to get people to recycle cardboard, right? How are we going to motivate companies? How are we going to motivate individuals to recycle batteries? And some of the battery elements stay elements for a very long time. So the people that are handling, even in the recycling factories for batteries, are being exposed to very toxic minerals, right? Metals. So we have to take all of that into consideration while we're making the shift to electric vehicles. So I think while we make the shift to electric vehicles, there are alternate fuel options, unfortunately, that don't get enough attention, right? There is biodiesel that's manufactured from vegetable oils or animal fats, or you can use recycled cooking grease. There is hydrogen, which is a very attractive option. And I can tell you a lot of the heavy duty industry in the US and in Europe are moving towards hydrogen. So that's definitely another viable option. You have ethanol, which is made from corn. That has an unintended consequence as well, right? You're taking food away from people and trying to create fuel from that. And then you have propane as well, which we know we use widely residential purposes, right? And there's also natural gas, which is also domestically abundant gaseous fuel. And unfortunately, all of them are getting kind of sidelined and masked under the electric vehicle push. So I think, you as the next generation sustainability leaders can absolutely look into these as well. There's also a lot of work being done in the US around synthetic fuels that is supposed to mimic the energy density that we have from fossil fuels, but not necessarily produce the emissions, the tailpipe emissions, which means then we can continue to use the ICE engine, but make the fuel zero emissions, right? I also wanted to share some additional resources. So when I stepped into the sustainability world as part of my group chief position here at Harley, I have a mechanical engineering background. I'm not an environmental engineer. So I actually went and got this credential from this organization called International Society of Sustainability Professionals. They have varying levels of credential that you can study and write and get the certification for. It is internationally recognized, but it also gives you a lot of holistic view and framework, especially if you are going to work in the industry and help them move sustainability forward. Most of the time, sustainability gets a lot of talk, but the walk behind the talk seems to be a struggle because the business case for sustainability is not easy to build and is not always very convincing short term, right? So I wanted to share this resource by Harvard Business Review that I think puts out a real nice framework if you're building the business case for sustainability. And if you intend on working in manufacturing, which is what our automotive industry is, there's actually already a freely available toolkit for sustainability framework. And you don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's a pretty effective framework that I've used in my workplace. So I just wanted to share these resources with everybody. And before we come to the end, I wanted to leave everybody with a few questions, food for thought, as maybe a conversation starter for our interaction here. Are we approaching the issue of sustainability holistically, or are we looking at it very narrow? How do we work around the blind spots? It's my opinion that the answer is not binary. It's not one, but a mixed landscape of different solutions. As the next generation sustainability leaders, please, I implore you to challenge the status quo and ask yourself and your organizations and your superiors, are we asking the right questions? And look for opportunities to fund the research and infrastructure to support alternate fuels. And I want to leave you with this, right? Ask yourselves, we are trying to prevent climate change and progress environmentally friendly products. But in trying to do that, are we really destroying our environment and creating a new problem? So that's why I want to make sure, as the next generation leaders, approach sustainability as a more holistic issue and not just with blinders on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for this thought-provoking presentation. Now, to carry forward this session, I would like to invite Mr. Chaturvedi on stage. So please.
thank you, ma'am, for your thoughts on the topic. Being cognizant of the time differences, we just like to open the floor to any question and answers that the audience has for you. In case the question is not audible clearly, just let me know and I'll repeat the question.
I'm audible? Yeah. Good morning. My name is Amitesh Patnaik. I'm MBA second year sustainability. So my question is that in the late 19th century, like we saw a short development phase for EVs that lasted around 3 decades, and then the Ford Model T came along. What are the chances that history might repeat itself again with biofuels because of the capability to be cradle to cradle, and even you modify the current engines to work with them?
If I understood the question right, the question was, will history repeat itself and all the work we're doing on the electric vehicles not really progress? So I think, like I said before, I think the answer is going to be a mixed landscape. With the amount of push, the investment we're seeing for electric vehicles, I think electric vehicles will definitely be a big part of our repertoire, right? They will definitely be part of our powertrain variant, but will they be the only solution? I don't think so. And the one more reason I say that is because if we truly need to meet that 50% battery electric vehicle projections, the amount of batteries you need to meet and produce, we just don't have the raw material on Earth unless we have a huge Mars exploration project and we find minerals there. We just don't have the minerals today to manufacture all those batteries. So that's why I think the answer is not binary. It has to be a mixed landscape. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so ma'am, I had one question. So,
Sure.
I mean, we've seen that California has recently adopted a zero emission vehicle regulation as well, in which it requires automotive manufacturers to produce a certain number of zero emission vehicles based on their total number of vehicles sold in California specifically. Do you think policies like these are required in India as well to promote the adoption of electric vehicles, or promote number one, the auto manufacturers to produce more electric vehicles?
I think the policy always helps, right? It helps accelerate the adoption of technology. But like I said before, I don't think the governments should be in the area of mandating the technology. They can mandate the outcome. I think that is essential. They need to mandate the zero emission target. They need to mandate the emissions that we get out of the tailpipe. But they shouldn't be imposing internal combustion bans, for example. So one thing we all keep forgetting, right? Despite, if you look at the slide I had shared, all of those bans for internal combustion engines are new vehicle sales, right? But the new vehicle sales in every country is a small part of the population of vehicles that are actually on the road. So if you truly want to improve environmental impact, you need to look at it from a net zero emissions outcome versus just mandating new vehicle sales, because you will only make a dent. So as an example, I'll tell you this. So if you look at the renewable energy sources that power grids, especially across the world, Germany actually invested, I want to say around, I might be off on the numbers a little bit, maybe around $580 million into solar and wind power. And at the same time, France invested in nuclear power. And fast forward a decade later, or 2 decades later, Germany's cost of electricity is much higher than France, right? And it goes to because solar and wind power seem to be the popular option, but they're extremely unreliable. right? And they don't come with lack of unintended consequences. Wind energy has a lot of effect on the bird population. Solar power has a lot of effect on the overall environment as well. The materials that you use to build the solar farms is not free of emissions either. So I think that's why I said, just switching, because the whole world is switching to electric vehicles, that's not the best option. And I think if there's any country in the world that can actually find creative ways to resolve the automotive emissions problem, it's India. Because we have, this is a critical issue for us considering the population we have, the space we have to work with, and the air pollution that we're dealing with on a daily basis. We understand the sense of urgency. We always have worked with limited resources, right? I explained, and I'm sure it resonates with a lot of people where you've worked with water scarcity, you've lived with electrical unreliability, all of that. So I think if you just look around in your own household, I'm sure all of your mothers, I have never seen them throw food away. They'll recycle, they'll reuse, they'll never throw their saris away, right? My mom recycles all of her wedding saris, and they've become outfits for me now. So this is something I think India does really organically well. So we really need to tap into that powerhouse so we can accelerate the sustainability journey. And I truly believe when I say this, that India has the potential to take the leadership when it comes to sustainability, like no other country.
Good morning, ma'am. My name is Soumya Bhushan Nanda, MBA Sustainability Management first year. So my question is, as we know, right now the reserve of lithium-ion battery is also in a very limited amount, and majority of the stock is in China, with which comes also a lot of geopolitical implications. And at the same time, a lot of alternative fuels have also been developed, like aluminum air battery or sodium air battery. So, what are the different initiatives we've taken for this technology?
So I think if I understand the question right, you're asking what other initiatives are happening around advancing battery technology so we can reduce the dependence on lithium. Is that the question?
Yes.
Okay. So obviously there's a lot of work being done around the battery technology. There's a lot of research going on. There's a huge push to use silicone-based batteries as well. Silicone-based batteries are becoming more and more popular, but the problem with silicone does have the ability to store more energy than your traditional battery. But the problem with silicone is it's very brittle. It can break very easily. So there's a lot of work around graphene enhanced silicone batteries. So the graphene obviously is another form of carbon, right? So when graphene is laced over with the silicone, it makes it less brittle, but it also helps with the thermal runaway and things like that. So in short, yes, there's a lot of work being done around the batteries. And I think we will transition from the liquid electrolyte to the solid state batteries probably in the next 3 to 4 years, considering the amount of investment that's going into that space. But it's not so clear whether we will shift away from our dependency on lithium. Like I said before, the most recent price hike that we've seen with these metals, I think that trend will continue for some of the other metals as well that we use in battery. And usually for corporations, some of the best motivations to fund alternate research comes when it hits their bottom line. And I think that's going to happen because of the price increase.
Just some, thank you for your time, ma'am. Just to summarize once, Ms. Ashwini talked about significant health impacts that we are seeing of the air emission. You also saw the importance of decarbonization, specifically in the transport sector, the challenges that are associated with electrification of vehicles, what are the blind spots of electrifying vehicles, and especially in terms of what are the alternative fuels that the organizations are looking at and the countries can utilize. We thank you, Ashwini ma'am, for your time today, and we hope that the audience has gained a lot of information from you. Thank you for your time, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm a little bummed I can't hear the rest of the speakers, but it's really, really late for me. And I have to take my kids to classes tomorrow morning, so I'm going to sign off here. But thank you so much for having me on the speaker panel here. Thank you.
I would now like to invite Mr. Vikas Gupta to the stage. Mr. Vikas Gupta, before we invite you, I would now Professor Mugna, if you can facilitate the start. Mr. Vikas Gupta is the founder, CEO, and CFO of e-Ashwa Automotive Private Limited, and he has been instrumental in launching and steering the company in relatively unexplored but high potential growth sector of electromobility, which is emerging now as one of the significant contributors to sustainable development. A qualified CA, CS, and CMA with over 2.5 decades of experience in accounts, finance, compliance, and business management, Mr. Vikas Gupta supervises operations and finance of the organization. He's a strong believer in collaboration and partnerships. Before setting up e-Ashwa Automotive, Mr. Gupta was instrumental in establishing many of the startup organizations and departments and running them seamlessly. He has also played a vital role in implementing crucial processes, practices, and policies at various places. Leading from the front is the mantra, and setting an example by deed is his basic nature. Mr. Vikas Gupta has been decorated by many prestigious rewards, recognition, and awards. We welcome you, Mr. Vikas.
Thank you so very much, respected father, who is not here, Dean ma'am, my respected dignitaries on the dais, and such a wonderful student and vibrant audience here. I'm really excited to have this session. There is one presentation which I gave. If we can run that presentation, it would be my job. Otherwise, I can speak about electric vehicle by heart also. So thank you so much. And it was prior to me, Mr. Ashwini gave an excellent presentation and food for thought for all of us. It was really good to hear all those views. I would restrict my presentation to the challenges and the opportunities which are available in the electric vehicle industry in India. So I run an organization called e-Ashwa Automotive Private Limited. E stands for electric and Ashwa stands for horse. So it's an electric horse that we created about 4.5 years back. We are into the manufacturing of electric two-wheeler and electric three-wheeler. There are generally 5 parameters. I'll take 2-3 minutes to brief about the company because it will set the context for the entire discussion, and then thereafter I come straight to the topic of the discussion. So there are 5 parameters on which any automobile company is measured. So 3 out of those 5 parameters, e-Ashwa is the largest EV company in the country. So the 5 parameters includes the first parameter of dealer and distributor network, because 100% of the sale of an automobile happens only through the dealer and the distributor. And not a single vehicle is sold by the OEM on its own. So eAsh Automotive is having a base of 1080 plus dealer and distributor across 29 states and union territories. And the next player, I would not name the next player, is having about 430, 440 kind of dealer distributor network as compared to our network of 1080. So there is a gap of about twice the number in that particular parameter between us and the next player. The second parameter on which an automobile company is measured is the production capacity. So eAsh has a unique proposition of setting up an assembly line every 200 kilometers in the country. Currently, we have 26 units which are operational in 16 states. And there are 24 more units which are coming up by the end of October 22. So with that, we will have about 50 units which would be operational in nearly 29 states and union territories. And it will give us a capacity of 1,25,000 vehicles per month. The next company after us would be having at max 25,000 vehicle production capacity per month. So there is a gap of about 5,000 that we will create as compared to the next company. The third parameter on which an automobile company, particularly an electric vehicle company, is measured is the number of approved vehicles. Because you can't run any vehicle in the country unless and until you have the desired approvals in place. So eAsh currently is having in its group 20 plus two-wheeler vehicles approved by the government or the appropriate authorities and 10 plus approved three-wheeler vehicles in its product portfolio. There is no other player in the country who is having more than 10 vehicles approval in its portfolio. So there is a gap of about 3 times in that particular parameter as well. Now the growth story of eAsh and the brand name which is associated with eAsh is not that famous. So there are other popular brand names which are already in the industry for many years, and hence the last two parameters which include number of vehicles sold and the revenue per month, eAsh falls among the top 10 companies in the electric vehicle segment in the country. It will take us another 6 to 8 months time to reach us to the number one position, but we are very much positioned and determined to reach to the number one position. And the kind of vision that we are carrying is to have at least twice the gap in all the 5 parameters with the next player. With that, I have set the context, and I would like to run my presentation, and I would like to have a discussion thereafter. So can I have the pointer? Can I run the presentation from here? It would be easier for me if I run it from here. So why EV? Let's not blame the government for rising fuel price and the fossil environment. The solution is there with us. At least as we have seen, 43% of the contribution in the environment pollution is towards the automobile. So electric vehicle is one source for you to reduce that. eAshwa is your ladder towards this goal. Now this is a comparison with the electric combustion vehicle industry and the combustion engine vehicle industry and the electric vehicle industry. So I'll just rush it through. So the industry which is set up for ICE is very large and complex, whereas it is one of the eAsh unit you could see such a small and a simple industry which we could set up. There is large workforce which is concentrated on one place. Now this is the most disadvantage of concentrating on one place, because then the entire development gets focused at one place. Whereas if you are like eAsh is setting up 50 units all over the country, so we are basically carrying the development to the smaller of the places. We are setting up one unit in Bhubaneswar as well, and we are coming up with a larger unit. The largest of our unit in Mayurbhanj, wherein we are getting some land allotted through the Odisha government, and we will set up a complete EV park wherein each and every component of the electric vehicle will be manufactured in Odisha itself. Why Mayurbhanj is because we could cater 4 states through that particular territory. It is Jharkhand, Odisha, West Bengal, and to some extent Chhattisgarh. So capex involved in any ICE industry is humongous. One can't think of a person like me who has served 22 years with various corporates can't think of setting up an ICE industry, whereas I was able to set up an electric vehicle industry because the capex involved is very small. Now, the concentrated employment I already mentioned is one of the disadvantage of the ICE industry because the entire development, the entire employment get restricted to one location, whereas with the electric vehicle we could disperse it to various locations. Polluting industry, not only the running of an electric vehicle reduces the pollution, but also the industry itself is a very less polluting industry. Supply chain management is very easy to manage with having an unit at every 200 kilometer, the last mile disbursement of the goods, the last mile logistics of the vehicle, which also carries a lot of pollution because then ultimately you are using the ICE vehicle in order to transport the electric vehicle. So with setting up decentralized assembly units, we are able to reduce even the environment pollution from that perspective. Outward transportation, I have already mentioned. The last mile logistic is one of the major cost element as well as the pollution element in the ROI. Now, since the capital investment in the ICE industry is humongous, so the ROI is very less as compared to that kind of capital investment. Whereas in the case of electric vehicle industry, we commit a ROI of 2 years, a payback period of 2 years to anybody who get invested with us. So that's the kind of ROI difference. Whereas in the ICE industry, you can't think of coming to a break even before about 7 years time when you are setting up an industry. Now, this is a unique proposition of ours which we wanted to deliberate upon, which is called co-assembly unit, wherein we set up an assembly unit in joint venture with somebody who is interested in setting up a unit with us. The advantage is that we provide the entire ecosystem, we provide the complete technical know-how, approvals, processes, and the sales network. All these 5 points are provided by us, whereas the investor provides the investment, partial investment, management bandwidth, local connect and influence, infrastructure, and the ownership of the unit. So that's the kind of combination through which we set up the assembly unit. Now let us see where do we stand in terms of electric vehicle penetration in the country. Today there are 99% of the OEMs who are importing the vehicles from China or some other countries, primarily from China only. And the only activity which is happening in the country is assembling of those vehicles. There is huge dependency on the China on that. There have been this data is a little older data. There have been about 40 lakh electric two-wheeler that have been imported from China so far. And those vehicles have been consumed here. India is the largest importer of electric vehicle worldwide. So there are some data points that most of the industry started about 10 years back, but since at that point in time the industry was nearly 100% dependent on the overseas market, primarily China, because the imported vehicles were in the ready to use stage. There was not even the assembling which was happening in the country, and hence it failed. because those people who were importing and selling the vehicle as a trade activity were not able to provide the service and the spare support, and hence it failed. Today, the industry is also importing, but in the CKD form, completely knocked down form, and then the assembling activity is happening here in the country, and hence OEMs like us and the other players are able to provide the service and the spare support, because the assembling activity is happening here. We are getting the components imported and then assembling it here. So these are the so let me just skip the presentation for the time being and state few of the problems which the electric vehicle industry is facing. So since the entire vehicle is imported from a country outside India, there are certain disadvantages which we are facing in the industry. The first and the largest disadvantage is there is no design advantage available to us. So there are only 24 unique kind of vehicles which are available in the world market. And since India is importing the vehicles from outside, so only those 24 type of vehicles are assembled and sold in the country. So a vehicle which is sold by Ola Electric, say for an example, could also be sold by eAsh Automotive, because there is no design patent, design registration which is happening for the electric vehicle. So there is no specific design advantage which is available to any of the OEMs here in the country. The second disadvantage is there is no technology advantage which is available. Since the vehicles are imported from outside, the technology is available to all the players in the country. There is no technology advantage which is available. There is very minimal capex required, and hence the competition is huge and humongous. There are about 800 plus players in the electric two-wheeler and the three-wheeler segment which are competing with each other. That's the kind of competition we have. There are many players who are not bothered about the warranty or the service support that they are claiming at the time of selling the vehicles, because they know that they have not invested much in the industry and there is nothing at stake. They could very well run away after about 9 months or 12 months kind of time frame after they sold the vehicle, and can set up a unit about 50 kilometers or 100 kilometers away from the place where they have set up their first unit. So there is no appreciation about the service or the quality of the product. The end user is using electric vehicle not because he is very concerned about environment. So end user is not very concerned about environment. At least they are not using electric vehicle because they are very concerned about the environment. They are not concerned with the design because they are running it for the purpose of saving the cost. The cost of petrol and the cost of diesel is so high these days that it pinches everybody who want to travel to about 70 kilometers in a day, because it costs them about 200 rupees. By using an electric vehicle, they can do the same activity at about 20 rupees expenditure. And hence people are not considerant about the quality, about the environment, about the design, about the technology. What they are more concerned about is the cost efficiency. And hence this is the biggest problem, because there is no incentive available to an OEM like me to produce a vehicle which is very unique in design, which is very unique in technology, which is 100% indigenously produced, because it will cost me a little more than what it is costing me today when I am importing it from China and simply assembling it here. And hence government has to provide a lot of initiatives in order to promote the industry to shift from make in India to made in India. So I'm a true believer of shifting from make in India to made in India. We have recently developed a vehicle called e-Chotu. Now Chotu is a very common name which is used for somebody who is who is providing a lot of services at various small shops. So this each-O2 is a 100% indigenous product made out of Indian motor, Indian controller, Indian raw material, Indian components. And we are trying to launch it. We have recently launched this product and we are basically starting the mass production of it. But the problem is that the cost of each O2 as compared to any other product, comparable product in this range is a little higher, about 6,000-7,000 rupees higher than what is readily available in the market. So that's the problem that we are facing as an OEM. Now, there is another problem which we are facing as an OEM is that the industry, EV industry is an inverted tax industry. Does anybody know what is inverted tax industry or inverted tax regime? So what happens in the GST inverted tax regime is a regime wherein your input duty is of a higher value as compared to your output duty. So most of the components in the electric vehicle, if we are buying it from the Indian market, cost us 28% or 18% of the GST, whereas the output duty that we pay on selling an electric vehicle is just 5%. What does it imply? It implies that we have huge amount of the excess duty that we have paid in advance and we need to claim it from the government. And the claim process, although it has smoothened over the past 1 year, but still it takes about 3.5 to 4 months time in order for us to claim that. So there is a difference of about 20% of our cost element which get stuck in the form of cash flow. We will have to claim it after about 3 to 4 months time frame. So about 80% of our capital, if I calculate for the 4 months time frame, 20% into 4, 80% of our capital get stuck in claiming the excess duty that we have paid to the government in buying those products. Do I have time? Or I can? Okay, sure. So the last problem that I would like to talk is all the incentives that are being provided by the government are provided to the end user. But it has to be passed on by the OEM, by the manufacturer. Now, FAME 2 is a subsidy which gives 15,000 rupees per kilowatt of battery usage by the government, but to the end user. But the OEM or the manufacturer has to pass on that subsidy. And the claim process is about 3 to 4 months time frame. So again, there is a lot of capital that get stuck in us passing on that subsidy and then later on claiming it from the government. So those are few problems that this industry is facing. Now, what does it mean for all of you? So there are 132 components which are used in making an electric two-wheeler. And there are about 80 plus components which are used in making an electric three-wheeler. Today, most of these are imported from China or an overseas market. So this is an opportunity for you because you could set up a small unit to make all these kind of components. And there is huge market which is available. The total consumption of electric two-wheeler at this point in time is 2 lakh per month, whereas the two-wheeler industry is about 20 lakh vehicles per month, which will grow to about 25 lakh vehicles per month in another 2 years kind of time frame. And hence there is a huge opportunity available. If there is no design advantage available, then government is not stopping anybody to take the design advantage. This is again an opportunity. If there is no technology advantage which is available, again this is an opportunity to all of us to invent and to make some innovation in that kind of industry. So Every problem gives you an opportunity, and this is my point. This is a green field which is available for all of us to come forward, take the initiative, and get the benefit out of that initiative in a longer run. I'm sure in the shorter run there is no such benefit. You will have to invest, but in the longer run, for last 4.5 years, we keep on investing in the industry, but we are sure that in about 1 year time, we will start reaping the benefit out of that investment that we have done. So I would stop here, and if there is some question which I could answer, I would be happy to answer that question. Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I invite Mr. Anamaya to continue the session.
Thank you, Mr. Vikas, for your thoughts. You kind of talk about the supply chain aspects of electric vehicles, specifically talking about the full assembly units, the emission aspects as well of the electric vehicles, and the internal combustion vehicles. The challenges in the EV industry that you specifically talked about shed a lot of light on the topic today, and I hope that the audience gained a lot of information out of this as well. The policies and schemes also that we talk about that are supporting transition to electric vehicles is an important aspect that we all need to look at. I think we have a small snacks break now, so let's try and be back by 11:50, 11:20.
आजकल कुछ ना कुछ बिजी हो जाती है समथिंग कल कल मॉर्निंग कितने व्हीकल नंबर हाँ हाँ Hello.
Sir, have you taken some refreshments? Okay.
Hello. मुकेश फोन किया था, उससे बात किया था, बोला कि वो एक बार पता चलेगा, नहीं नहीं अगर हुआ होगा तो बता दिया ना किसी नहीं ना ये सारे बार yeah. Okay. Was the coming reply?
Okay, I understand. You are correct.
No, no. हेलो हाँ मिला ये जो फोटोज स्नैक्स मेल करते हैं हाँ कर दियो हाँ वो हाँ जरूरत पड़ने से नहीं है वो इसका इनॉग्रेशन इनॉग्रेशन और इसका है ना फोटो वो उनको उनको मेल और इसका शुरुआत है ये चीता चीता यार मैं वेबसाइट में आ गया
Where are you?
currently in Nandan. In your country, this
We have units in 60, but our primary base is in Russia.
Gotcha. Oh, and the dream. What has and dream. There's some gap between giving and giving. There are various
Okay, guys, it's a request for everybody to please settle down as quick as possible because we will be starting our event very soon. And our guests have a very pressing schedule, so we cannot waste more time. It's a request, humble request for all of us to please settle down as quickly as possible. Please call your friends if they're outside. It's a humble request for everybody to please settle down as quickly as possible because we have to start at the scheduled time because our guests of honor have time crunches. So please. Okay, so as most of us have arrived and settled, so we are about to start the second session of this event. So from now onwards, Mr. Chaturvedi will be taking the lead and we'll be calling our next speaker of honor on the dais and please carry forward the event. Thank you.
Our next speaker for the day is Dr. Sanjeev Kumar. Dr. Sanjeev Kumar is a decorated IFS officer of PAS 2009. With a Master in Veterinary Science, specialization in animal genetics and breeding, Mr. Kumar is currently heading the position of Deputy Director at Nandankanan Zoological Park, Bhubaneswar, Odisha. He has also served as a Divisional Forest Officer of Rourkela and Sambalpur. Apart from his administrative caliber, he also has an enriched experience as a scientist at the Indian Veterinary Research Institute, Izatnagar, Bareilly, UP. In his coveted career until now, Shri Kumar has many feathers in his cap. His laudable works include greening of urban landscape, massive awareness program in the Green Manadi Mission, innovation in livelihood intervention in tribal areas for forest and farm days, and transformation of zoo using modern concepts and technology. I would now like to invite Professor Mogna to felicitate Dr. Sanjeev.
So very good morning to all. First of all, I thank the XIM University to call me for this conclave and very pertinent topic. Though since last few days, due to All India Zoo Directors Conference at Bhubaneswar, I was little bit very, you can say hectic. My schedule was very hectic, but they have approached me on that time, and since topic was so pertinent, then I would happily accept it. But unfortunately, I didn't got much time to even prepare myself. Yesterday only it concluded, and morning I have just jotted down something and came. So I think most of you have already visited Nandankanan, those who are at least Orissa based, and so Nandankanan, if you see that it is one green lung or of the city just outskirt of Bhubaneswar city, but now you can say it is just a part of the city. So earlier it was the in between Cuttack and Bhubaneswar. So Nandankanan, everybody is going for the some recreational prospects. But if you, if from the environmental point of view, if you will see that Nandankanan has one zoo, one botanical garden, and in between Kanjia Lake, which is of national importance. So we host rich biodiversity. Our zoo inmates, it's a one of not one of the, it's the largest number, 4,551 animals of 161 species. Many, you can say biodiversity wise, the melanistic tiger, white tiger, pangolins, so many very critically endangered species live in the our zoo. Kanjia Lake, lot of migratory birds, resident, all type of you can say biodiversity reside in Kanjia. Not only the zoo part, but adjoining forest area have the lot of again biodiversity, plant biodiversity as well as the animal biodiversity of all kinds. So surely if we are managing such a, you can say aggregation of the biodiversity in a very small area of 437 hectare, then we have to think something that that will benefit the greenery as well as the biodiversity. And from here, this electric vehicle or electric, you can say, use of green initiative, and especially the electric vehicle or electric, you can say, the all sort of from the bike to railway engine, we have started to maintain the greenery as well as the for the welfare and comfort of our zoo animals as well as the free ranging animals, those who are living in and around Nandankanan, as well as those guests who are coming in the winter from the long way from the Siberia or from the other parts of the world. Surely, since so these e-vehicles or electric vehicles is a part of our overall, you can say, aim for the green initiative. Surely, as previous speaker and you all know, the fuel-based vehicles and e-vehicles, the difference, as well as why e-vehicles are promoted, mainly to get the clean and fresh air, because you know the either diesel or petrol, which are mainly used for the vehicles, they will emit the carbon dioxide as well as other gases, which are air pollutants as well as the all the factors of climate change, what we are telling, the greenhouse gases. So that is one aspect. Then second aspect is noise, because we are not only wants the our environment should be very clean, but it is either less noise or no noise, because you know all these precious animals, they are under tremendous stress due to their confinement. Though our zoo has given near to natural environment, but still they are under stress, tremendous stress due to lot of visitors are coming. They are finding less. So noise is a very, very, you can say, deterrent for their normal behavior and especially for the breeding behavior. So these vehicles are or you can say less or noise free. Then third aspect, that since our vegetation is very high, so whatever the initiative or whatever the you can say maybe the pilot basis, if Nandan is doing, then it is visible or the awareness or the message is good to the masses, especially the school childrens. The school childrens, lot of small children who become the future citizen of India, or not only India, but even lot of foreigners are also coming. So to give more eco-friendly ways of living, and surely our aim is to make our zoo as a carbon neutral zoo. So if we'll cut sort of all the carbon footprints, then we'll able to achieve the carbon a step, or we are a way forward for the getting the carbon neutral zoo. Recently, Government of India has developed vision plan for the Indian zoos. So in that there are 10 pillars, but the 10th pillar is advocating or the prioritizing the infrastructure upgradation, incorporating environmental sustainability measures. So here the lot of, you can say, focus on green initiatives, and e-vehicle, electric vehicles is one of the green initiative which all the organizations or institutions of who are using, so they should adopt. Nandan is one of the focal point for the 5T. Now Orissa government, they want to transform many institutions. And from the Forest and Wildlife Institution, Nandan is one of the where they what our previous speakers and other thing, the fund part. So fund is all for any new initiatives, especially for the, if you are going for the green initiatives, it requires a lot of cost. But Orissa government as well as the central government, for certain things they want to project that these can be possible, so that in future other institutions, other generations, they will, you can say, follow. So it is one of the 5T initiatives. So I already told you about the visitor very high. So pre-COVID it was like 32 lakhs per annum. During COVID also around 14 to 15 lakhs people are visiting. Now again after COVID it is back to the normal, and so the whatever the message government wants or society wants, we are just, you can say, starting from the Nandan. So Nandan, what are the prospect or where we can use these electric vehicles, because for such visitors we have various visitor services, from the safari to just our zoo is very big, so around 2 to 3 kilometers, especially the persons of you can say old age, ladies, of disabled persons, they are not able to walk. So we are advocating that walk inside the zoo, but it is practically not possible for many of our visitors. So battery operated vehicles. Even earlier, it was one of the pioneer zoo where the toy train, very ancient toy train was there, but that was diesel engine. So now we have converted it to the electric or battery operated. Multi-level car parking is one of the first multi-level car parking of the Orissa. Where there, since electric vehicles will park, so we have put the various charging points for the electric vehicles. Ropeway is coming up. Again, now so far we have not gone to the, you can say, or how will integrate this ropeway component with the green initiatives. battery operated vehicles. Just I was so during COVID period also around 2.5 lakhs people use the battery operated vehicles. So and in this year, so far in 4-5 months only, it is 1.78 lakhs people. So if that electric vehicle, any company, any institution, or any if they want to project that whether it is liked by the people, surely one has to visit or one has to approach Nandankanan so that to showcase that these electric vehicles are, you can say, on sustainable basis, on continuous basis, it is possible. So it is possible. There are surely challenges and other things already. Previous speakers also told, and in future session also the challenges you will get to know. So just for the timeline, how we have started this electric vehicles. Way back in 2001, our first battery operated vehicles, mainly the, you can say, the golf cart type vehicles. Now slowly, already Mr. Gupta has told you the various designs and other things. So then 2016, so we thought that our own staffs, they were using the normal motorcycle. Then we have replaced with the e-scooters, by bike. Then first lot. Then in 2020 with the Okinawa brand, second lot of scooters. And recently last year we have earlier it was the diesel engine. Then we have replaced with the battery operated toy train. There are surely various challenges for the toy train. So just a few pictures of battery operated vehicles. You can see the bottom, that was our old diesel operated toy train, and now we have replaced it with the battery operated toy train. Advantage of EV. So foremost advantage, you can say, the less local emission of the greenhouse gas. For me as a managing the environment, or you can say seeing the things on environmental perspective, it is the foremost is the less local emission. Why I am stressing the local emission? Because we have to think about the production process, that from where the electricity generates, whether it is from the conventional source or renewable or non-renewable. Surely our R&D has to think, or they have to innovate, or they have to work on that how we can not only reduce the local emission but the global emissions. Because if you are if I am using by all the green initiative, I reduce the local emission in the Nandankanan too, but due to high emission or production emission elsewhere or even in China, if I am polluting more, then this is not called the sustainability. Surely noise, save money and efficiency. Money part, it is still debatable, but what initial you can say remarks our one of the speaker told that initial cost is high, but running cost is surely it is low for the electric vehicles. So as an institutional perspective, we have to think that whether it is sustainable or not for a long run. So just I have given the what e-vehicles we are using. Like currently we have 12 number of e-scooters with 4 charging points, 1 toy train, departmentally owned 5 battery operated vehicles, and since the bottleneck, or you can say the not demerit, but our you can say limiting factor was the how will operate these battery operated vehicles on a very smooth way. So initially due to less R&D or less, you can say, service provider, there was a lot of issues for the maintenance of the electric vehicles. Then we have outsourced that. So now it is an outsourced mode. And currently 22 battery operated vehicles run by the licensing. So these are the few brands, mainly the Akil of the Chennai base, and just I have gone through, though there is no detailed assessment of economics of e-vehicles and ecological impact, which when they approached, then they asked me to just pinpoint on these aspects. So in foreign countries, I have gone through the literature in night, but India, I do not find any paper or any concrete paper that if anybody has gone for the just to assess the economics versus the ecology, that how much ecological impact on you inmates or even on the local flora as well as fauna in any forest area or any even in any institution. So I will request if any of you, because currently we have last quarter we have started the again one initiative, Nandan Karan internship program. So currently 8 undergraduate as well as not undergraduate, graduate as well as the postgraduates students, they are taking up the internship in different fields. So far, so I will request if somebody is willing, somebody is willing to take up this project, that to assess what is the economics versus the ecology of these electric vehicles, then I will very happy to just the empirical things like for the 23 vehicles per month, you can say charging cost is 18,000 rupees. Just I am giving over one thought. Surely it is a very cheap, but all these are very empirical data. If some data is there, then only you can convince the policy makers that okay, what is the initial cost, what is the running cost, and what is the ecological benefit. Then only because our whatever the initiatives will take, we have to first convince our the policy makers, or if there is a political will, then only these things will go in a long way. Otherwise, it become the fancy, or everybody will everybody will see that tell that green initiative that all are very good, but they will not practice. Already, he was told that Odisha was the pioneer that who has very concrete, you can say, guidelines or policy for the electric vehicles. So here, so a lot of incentives as well as the steps Odisha government has taken on how to popularize or how to, you can say, increase the adoption of the electric vehicles. You can Google it and you will get it around 20 pages documents, but very elaborate. So everything very clear, or for the everybody, for the citizen, for the department, for the business houses, that what are the benefits or what are the incentives they will get. So lot of like for 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, 4-wheelers, for buses, there are various incentives, and Odisha is one state which they directly deposited the, you can say, incentive money from the retrospective effect. When this was announced in Feb 2022, but those who are purchased the vehicles from the November itself, they have deposited the money. Awareness part also I have just taken from the policy documents only. So here you can say a lot of things we have to do for the awareness of the electric vehicles, and we are Nandan, we are in touch with the KIT University as well as the Century University, so that whatever the models they are developing, because now
our in-house, these university also start assembling the electric vehicles. So for the trial run or for the, so that they can showcase that in what sir was telling, that made in make in India or made in India. Similarly, make in Orissa and made in Orissa. So they can showcase the visitors or everybody that these are possible. Just few issues to be addressed. Already they have told that battery make and life, source of power, that whether it's a conventional or non-conventional, portability, compatibility, though now it's like universal, mainly the charging stations are universal, but still there are few models where the, you can say, portability issue is there. Technical person to repair and a spare part for the maintenance. This is the biggest challenge for a user, as a stakeholder, where we are keeping lot of electric vehicles. Our toy train, still government is asking every day whether aaj chal raha hai ya nahi chal raha hai. I'm sick because of these issues. That if something goes wrong, whom to contact or how they will come or what time they will take to repair it. And for the renewal, you can say just we have gone one step ahead, because some speakers was telling this is less. So some speakers was telling the renewable energy, and so we are close to the OREDA to give the solution, because still we are taking the normal electricity for the charging of all the electric vehicles. So we are tapping, because again I told you the Kanjia Lake, so floating solar power, unused space to have some captive solar plant to generate the electricity and use it for the electric vehicle. Then only we can say that really we are doing some green initiative on a sustainable way. So for me, these are the few, you can say, way ahead, that how to aggressively promote the electric vehicles through adoption, adaptation, and R&D. R&D is the key if you want to promote use of renewable energy to charge the battery, because here is the key for the environmental point of view. A skill center for creating trained manpower related to EV ecosystem. Then setting of ecosystem for production of efficient batteries and its recycling. One of the speaker already told the recycling issue of the vehicles. And last one, the scientific studies on impact of EVs on ecosystem, on the environment. So thank you one and all, and for the questions and other things, I think it will take in the last.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I invite Mr. Anamaya to carry forward the session.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjeev, for your kind words and for sharing the information. You briefly touched upon the floral and faunal diversity of Nandankan and wildlife sanctuary. Also talking about why electric vehicles are important for flourishing biodiversity. Your highlights of the vision plan for Indian Zoo also shed some important light. The important aspect that I also took away from the session was how battery operated vehicles are being offered as visitor services to the Nandankan Park. Some advantages of electric vehicles that you also touched upon, and the policy initiatives that have been undertaken by Odisha government also shed important insight. I would now like to invite our last speaker for the day, Mr. Sandarsh. He is an alumnus of XIMB with a specialization in operations and marketing. During his tenure as a student, he was the placement coordinator and university all-rounder gold medalist for the batch of 2017. In his 8 years of automotive career, he has been in various roles of product development, supply chain consulting, strategy, and sustainability. Currently, he leads operational net zero and supply chain sustainability for Tata Motors. I would now like to invite Professor Samogna to felicitate Mr. Sandarsh.
last speaker of the day, not an easy task. So what I've done, I knew that since I'm going last, most of the points will be taken care of. So what I've done, I've taken the liberty of stretching the theme on both sides. So I'll put some context in, then we'll speak about very briefly on EVs, and most of the points have already been discussed, but I'll try to put few fresh points into perspective. Then I'll move into just a step of food for thought beyond EVs. So let's begin. So guys, climate change, we all know what's happening and all. So just it's a quick snapshot of what the future will look like if we don't act today. What role can we play in fighting the climate change? We'll discuss shortly. Next one. So all that we saw, all the impact that we saw in the video is mostly due to CO2 emissions. And there's something called Kaya identity. It's a very simple equation, but actually it's a very empowering equation. And using very simple terms, it actually says that the total emission is just a product of 4 factors: population, GDP per capita, energy intensity of the GDP, and carbon intensity of the energy. Now, if you look at the equation above, the one in the rectangle, it would feel like such a simple equation. EF equal to F to kiya hai. Baki to it's all cancels out. But the fact is, if you split them into these elements, these are so much measurable, so much readily available data that using just these simple data sets, you can estimate what is the total emission that is there for a country or for the entire globe. In fact, IPCC uses this equation to run the different climate scenarios of 1.5 degree, 2 degree, or below 2 degree scenarios. Now, if we look at this equation, the first portion, population. So, what can we do to actually reduce the emission? The F part. Now, if you look at the population, definitely you cannot go about reducing the population, but you can reduce the rate of it, not the population entirely. Then GDP per capita. For a country like us, the developing nation, and even for a developed country, asking to reduce the GDP per capita is probably criminal, because we have to give basics of life to all people who are underprivileged, and we have to go there. The third part is energy intensity of GDP. Now, energy and GDP are hugely correlated, and it's a positive correlation. So if your GDP goes up, your energy consumption will definitely go up. So the first 3 factors are definitely beyond control. And it's only the last factor, the carbon intensity of the energy, is actually what is going to make change on the emission factor. Now, the entire talk about EV is actually revolving around carbon intensity of energy. Why? Because we are moving from fossil to electrical. which is supposed to be, and the operative word is supposed to be greener than the current sources of energy, which is the fossil fuels. So we'll debate, it's a debatable topic whether electricity is currently how much green it is, but eventually it will be. So our entire discussion today is actually revolving around how do we reduce carbon intensity of energy for the vehicles or the transport that we use. Now, what are we discussing today? So if you look at the sectoral CO2 emissions of India, so this is India specific data. I think the study was conducted somewhere in 2019, published by IEA in 2019 itself. So the biggest emitter or the sector is power sector, followed by industries like iron and cement, which is commonly known as the hard to abate sectors, followed by transport. So transport constitutes about 10% of the entire emission of India, and this is what we are going to talk about. For power, most of our energy today is already based on fossil fuels, but a lot of initiative is being taken up by government in terms of converting them to renewables. There's a lot of bold statements have been made in our Panchamrit COP26 announcements, where the country is planning to have at least 50% of renewables by installed capacity. That would take us to roughly 17% by generation of electricity from renewables. Industries like iron and steel, there's a lot of initiative going on, green steel, and companies are trying to work out pathways to reduce the emissions. Transport is what we are here today to discuss. So let's do that. So let's talk EVs first. So the first part is the scope part of it. So since Jan 2018, India has constantly shown, the consumers have constantly shown that there is a increase in the acceptabilities of EVs, and they are definitely considering them. So if you look at the top line, the red line graph, which is India's acceptability, or actually the response to a question whether or not the new consumers are wanting to buy the EV as a next car. So definitely acceptability is there, right from 64% in 2019 to 91% in June of 2022. Now, what is interesting to watch here is that it is even beyond certain of the developed economies in terms of acceptabilities or the wantability of people to switch to EVs. So India has definitely shown a higher pull in terms of compared to even major economies. And this clearly implies that if there are enabling factors in place, what are these enabling factors? The cost parity is there, the basic challenges of EVs that we'll discuss shortly are if they're ironed out, people will definitely adopt to EV. Now, given this, that they have a likability towards EV, there are a lot of scenarios, and you would come across various white papers estimating what would be the EV potential of India. Currently, we sell about, let's say, in India, less than 2% of total four-wheeler sales of EVs. But by 2030, that's less than a decade from now, that is supposed to be around 30%. A decade from that, 2040, is supposed to get doubled, but around 60%. And by 2050, it's about to reach 75%. So in terms of the scope that is there for EVs, it's immense. The market is about to explode. Even Niti Aayog's estimate says that by 2028, we will be around 28% of EV in terms of total new products of cars, so new cars sold. So which is very close to what even CEW had predicted. Now, that was the scope part of it. Let's move to the challenges that are there. So some of the challenges have already been covered. Charging infra, definitely people have a lot of range anxiety. The issue with charging infra is that it has now become a chicken and egg story. So there aren't enough charging infra because there aren't enough EVs. People are not buying EVs because they feel that the charging infrastructure is not sufficient. And investors, or let's say players, are not putting charging infrastructures because they feel the EVs very sporadically distributed, and even if they put the assets, they won't be able to sweat it enough, and they will have underutilization, and it will eventually lead to a lower ROI. So eventually, and thankfully government has taken a note of this. They have come up with a charging infrastructure, some policy guidelines on it, and they're actually incentivizing companies and people and corporates to put up infra, where the government of India would give lands at a rebated price. They would give electricity at a lesser rebate, and a lot of other initiatives that have been thought through. Even they have a roadmap of putting one fast charger at every 3 by 3 square kilometers of national highway. So that's something that will soon go away. I mean, we will soon see a lot of oil companies are also pivoting around energy, and you'll soon see oil companies like IOCL, BPCL, all these companies having charging infrastructure along with the fueling stations. The next challenge is concentrated supply chain. So the graphs that you see here is actually a share of total production of these just top 3 companies in different stages of EV battery supply. So see the battery production, just top three countries comprise, they take about more than 70% of the entire battery production of the world. This is one of the biggest challenge where it is kind of an entry barrier for people who are wanting to get into these technologies, and Gupta sir did speak about this. So this is something that the country has also taken note of, and along with many corporates, a lot of work being done in terms of getting these technologies in India, developing indigenous technologies, while at the same time building core capabilities within our country to walk through these challenges of supply chain constraints. The next challenge is raw material ability. So availability. So there are on the graph you see the blue graphs that you see, the blue bar charts that you see. These are actual supplies of these particular metals. So first part is lithium. So lithium supply in 2030 will be at the blue bar graph that you see. Now that's a fact. The blue line that you see, that's actually the steps demand. Steps demand is basically a scenario where whatever is the current policy basis that what would be the demand look like. So if you concentrate on the blue graph and the blue line, you'll see that by 2030 more or less we are there. So whatever are the current policies today, which is already declared on paper, if the world moves along that, the supply of at least all these 3 core elements would not be a challenge. But when we go to an APS demand, so APS demand is announced pledges scenarios. For example, India has announced that it will be net zero in 2070, but we don't have sufficient clarity how will it be done. But in case if that is realized, where will that demand be? So that orange line that you see, that is the APS scenario. So definitely there is a shortage in 2030 in case of APS, APS scenario, as well as what is the availability today. And the NZD scenario, the red bar that you see, that's actually a net zero scenario, where if all the countries pledge to a net zero emissions by 2050, in that case, the demand will lie in that zone. And then you see there's a huge gap between what would be available in terms of these elements versus what would the demand be. The final challenge is the readiness of our grid. So as we add more and more EVs to our grid, there is definitely going to be a more power requirement from the grid. In fact, by current scenarios, by 2030 itself, additional 5% of India's power requirement will be required to meet the need of all the EVs that would be in place, and that's not a very aggressive scenario actually. Then the load pattern shift. Today, actually, most of other consumption of the industries are running during daytime. So if you look at the load curve of the Indian grid, most of the consumption is happening during day, and during night it's a limited consumption. Now this pattern is actually favorable for renewable energies because you have sun during the day, so you can pump in more solar panels and have more energies. And during night you don't have sun, so it's okay. You'll run on some amount of fossil fuels or probably some amount of wind power. But if everyone switches to EV tomorrow, there will be extreme amount of load at night durations. How is grid going to manage that? Those fluctuations are something that still have not been thought through, and it is something that is in draft right now. Then the pace of greening of grid. So we talked about are EVs really green? So let me give you some statistics around it. If you take an EV car today, a normal hatchback car today, it is no greener than a CNG car. So it's definitely better than petrol. It's most definitely better than a diesel in terms of tailpipe emissions. But in terms of net emissions, it's actually equivalent to a CNG vehicle. And all that is happening because currently we are using a lot of fossil power to run our grid, and we're using that particular energy to charge our battery at home. So while your tailpipe is free, but at least you're burning coal someplace to get that energy into your batteries. So what should be the pace of greening of grid? While we say that we have taken bold targets of 50% installed capacity of renewables by 2030, but in terms of, as I said, generation, it would still account to less than 17%. So that's still a small percentage even a decade from now. So that's another challenge. So we discussed EVs. We saw the scope that's definitely there. People are wanting it. We saw that there are some amount of challenges definitely, and there will be some technological changes and people will circumvent these challenges as and when they come. But are we missing something? Let's look at the transport sector emissions. We talk about EVs as the silver bullet of solving transport sector emissions. If you look at this chart, the emission from trucks, that is freight transport alone, is almost equivalent to cumulative of all other categories. Now, this is a very high, I mean, this particular fact is something that we should be very much cognizant of when we are thinking of EVs as the solution. Now, what happens with trucks is that EVs are, I mean, the batteries are very heavy, you know that. Now, if you have a long haulage applications, you have to run for 400 kilometers a day and carry a 40-ton load. So let's say 42 ton a truck is there. Just imagine the size of battery that you will put on that truck to run it through. So your dead weight itself will eat into half of the, I mean, payload capacity that you have. So definitely EVs are not the way forward for at least commercial applications. While EVs will mostly meet the requirement of passenger vehicle movements, but definitely not the freight vehicle movements. So just a parting thought I wanted to leave you with. So hydrogen is definitely the next. So the age will not be of EVs, but well, it will definitely be for EVs for passenger sector. But for commercial vehicles, the age will be of FCEVs, hydrogen fuel cell wells. And as we move towards more and more longer haulage, FCEVs will become the key. And a lot of work is currently being done both in India as well as in abroad to bring hydrogen-based fuel cells and technologies into India. Thankfully, government has also I mean, they have got this uptick of hydrogen energy, and they have something called a national hydrogen mission, which you can read about. They have I mean, they have a vision of 111, which is $1, 1 kg hydrogen by 1 decade. So by 2030 or 32, probably we'll have the hydrogen cost about $1 per kg. So that's the way to go. So finally, what I would like to say is that all the efforts that the mankind is taking towards decarbonization, facing sector, especially the transport sector, will move from the machines that change the world to the machines that will change for the world. And in the beginning, we talked about climate change, that climate change is here. But it is my appeal to young leaders here that to embrace the fact that this is also a climate for change. This is the right time to think new paradigm. This is the right time to think, be very innovative. Sustainability is not about cost. Sustainability is about making the right choices, bringing the right innovations into business so that you remain profitable. So if you look at SDGs 17 goals, the first goal is poverty and hunger. So eradication of poverty and hunger. So unless and until you have a profitable business, you cannot have a sustainable business. Sustainability, in fact, climate is around 13. So SDG goal 13 is climate change. One is poverty and hunger. So be innovative about business ideas. Think about ideas that can actually deliver impact on business and on climate. Don't think of sustainability as a cost or sustainability as any other CSR. You have to be very much into the new paradigm of thinking, and that's what the thought I want to leave you with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I invite Mr. Anamaya to come forward and take charge of the Q&A session.
Thank you, Mr. Sandarshi, for your insightful views. The video that you shared with us, all of us in the beginning, quite rightly put everything into context. The consumer intent and the way you talked about it and how it is changing rapidly towards EVs, specifically challenges and barriers towards scaling of the EVs, the infrastructure development, supply chain constraints, and amongst others. Especially something that I noticed on the session was talking about the fleet emissions. So, and the alternate fuel usage, such as hydrogen. I would now like to open the floor for questions. In fact, I'd like to take the first question. Like you rightly mentioned about fleet emissions, there's something that I noticed from the sustainability report itself, how Tata Motors is specifically working on technologies like blockchain and IoT and something like a digital twin model to imitate the life cycle of the vehicle. If you can shed some more light on specifically that and how this, we are seeing the emergence of Internet 4.0, Internet 5.0. So what role do you see that playing into adoption and increase of vehicles?
Right. So first of all, sustainability, as I mentioned, is no more about the glossy green pictures and cuddly animals. It's all about data, facts, analytics, and actually data-based decisions. So what we are doing at Tata Motors today in terms of this leveraging IoT and Industry 4.0 is that there's a special team has been put up, and we are doing advanced telematics with not only our passenger vehicles but also with our fleet vehicles. So all the new trucks that we roll out, we actually monitor in real time what is the driving behavior, what is the emission scenarios, I mean emissions that these trucks are giving, In case some of the trucks or some of the fleet vehicles are actually not performing to the standard that we have set, or then immediately we get to know, we are also analyzing the driving behaviors of individual drivers, and we are trying to influence that. So when we see a certain driving pattern which is not so coherent with, let's say, good fuel economy, so then we reach out to the fleet owner, we tell them that, see, so and so is a driving habit like this, for this particular speed ratio, you should be driving in this gear or this kind of inclination. This is what the range of gears should be. And that's how we are trying to influence even at the fleet side, in leveraging data into bringing actually more impact into, or using the same set of let's say assets to bring a better impact.
The floor is now open for you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shubham Das Mahodra, MBSM first year. So my question is, how much net carbon emission is prevented if we switch from conventional vehicles like IC engines to EV vehicles?
So let me break that question into two parts. First part is emissions. If you look at it for any automobile, the first part is the embodied emissions. What the emissions that is emitted because of making that vehicle, and the second part is the tailpipe emissions. What emissions you get when you actually use those vehicles. So if you look at embodied emissions, so ballpark, I would say EVs are twice more polluting than it, because the battery takes a lot of energy, a lot of water in fact to manufacture those many. But if you look from a tailpipe perspective, it is actually completely dependent on how green your grid is. So today, let's say, I mean, the IEA has about 798 grams of CO2 per kWh that we use, electricity that we use. So that's the emission factor of India's grid today. So if I have to look at ICE versus EV today, a EV vehicle, I mean, that I would restrict to passenger vehicles, would probably not be way better than a CNG vehicle in terms of tailpipe emissions. It would be slightly more in terms of embodied emissions. It would be at par with CNG vehicles and definitely better than petrol and diesel. But tomorrow, let's say if you put a rooftop solar panel at your home and you start charging your EV using that panel, you are zero. I mean, you are tailpipe zero from that moment onwards. So as India progresses towards more and more greener grid, the net emissions from EVs will definitely be way better than what we are in terms of tailpipe emissions today.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Soumya Bhushan Nandas, MBA Sustainability Management first year. So as you already mentioned about hydrogen energy, so for transporting also hydrogen energy also there is a lot of chances of being flammable, and a lot of chance for hazardous incidents that could happen. So what are the frameworks or initiatives that can be taken for preventing this situation? And my second question is, at the same time also, there are some alternative energy sources are being developed like aluminum air or sodium air. The sodium air also right now is being in use in UK and France. So what are the initiatives are taken for mainstreaming this technology in India?
So the first question was around transportation of hydrogen. That's definitely a challenge, and a lot of hydrogen producing companies or companies that envision to be huge hydrogen energy intensive things like the size of plants that Adani has put up or Reliance has put up, Tata Power has also invested recently. So they are figuring it out into how to transport. Definitely there are challenges. The specifics I am not aware, as you asked about it. But it's a challenge that can be circumvented. People are working towards how to transport, whether should it be same gas pipeline that are do today with some amount of modifications and leverage the existing assets, or entirely new assets that needs to be put in. So transportation of hydrogen, a challenge, yes, but it is being worked out, and it is still a lesser of a challenge compared to the cost of hydrogen that is there today. So today hydrogen would cost about, let's say, $4 per kg. And for hydrogen to be an economically viable fuel option, it has to be less than $1 per kg. And again, within hydrogen, there are issues of what energy used to convert, what processes, how is the electrolyzer cost going down. But those are the bigger challenges the industry is working through, and they have a roadmap around it. Definitely, transportation of hydrogen is something on the lesser side, lesser part of the challenge, and they will figure it out. The second question was, what about other technologies? Yes, definitely there are other technologies, and it's not, again, as I said, as EVs are not a silver bullet for all problems. Similarly, one specific technology won't be sufficient enough to meet all our requirements. So what it would really need is that we have a multifaceted approach while we move from lithium ion to, let's say, sodium ion to aluminum air. Those technologies definitely are being implemented. While piloting a technology is easy, getting a technology at a commercial, economically viable pace or scale is something that is a challenge. So that's all the companies are working towards. Very soon, definitely you will see some amount of sodium ion batteries coming into picture. In terms of alternate fuels, a lot of push is also being given by government on interim cleaner fuels. Things like focus on CNGs, focus on biofuels, focus on blending at some extent. So issues with them is that most of the bioproduced mixing elements would also put pressure on your land for agricultural outputs. So if suddenly, let's say tomorrow, growing jatropha becomes the best possible economic output for a farmer, they'll stop cultivating rice and wheat. So you have finite amount of land, you need to feed all the people. So how much is the potential to go for alternate technology and alternate fuel technologies? There's a limit to the cap to it. But anyways, multiple technologies are being worked upon. We cannot, to be honest, be sure that, okay, this is the technology that is definitely going to deliver or is going to be the thing for the future. So while people are experimenting with it, it's a transition phase, and we'll surely see new technologies coming up, dying down, and eventually getting accepted at a large scale.
So I would like to add the other aspect which you asked about the danger or the fear of fire getting caught on the battery side. So I would start it with the data. So there are about 50 lakh two-wheelers that have been sold in the country so far. And if you search the entire Google, you will find not more than 25 cases of vehicle getting fire. So this is more or less equivalent to 6 sigma parameters. So we are safe. The technology is not bad. Technology is very robust. It is just that the usage of the technology in the right manner is not being done. And as a result, in some cases, these kind of incidences are happening. Otherwise, from the technology perspective, the technology is safe and secure.
Yeah, can I ask so this is Dr. Tamogna General Faculty here. So my question is to Sri Gupta. Thank you, sir, for your very insightful presentation. So you were mentioning that, regarding the design, right? So we don't have option to kind of indigenizing the design. So can you comment on that? What kind of requirement is needed especially the two-wheeler sector, when you talk about the design, and maybe you can think about the three-wheeler. One problem that I see that, these, especially the three-wheelers, they're very much prone to accidents because their body is so light and they tend to topple down, and there are so many bad, instances that happen also before. So if you can comment on it and what is the way forward that you take.
Sure. So it is, I would say these challenges are not because these challenges are not because of the technology or because of the design. So I would first take up the last part of your question, wherein, see, these three-wheelers, when we send it for an approval, so there are few autonomous bodies which are authorized by the government for the approval of electric vehicles. So when those vehicles are sent for the approvals, those have to fall within a particular weight category. So if a two-wheeler, I will come to three-wheeler also, if a two-wheeler is weighing more than 65 kg of weight, it will not pass through the test. Why? Because those vehicles fall into two categories. One is the low-speed vehicle and the other is the high-speed vehicles. So low-speed vehicle can be run only up to 25 kilometers an hour and can have a motor voltage of only 250 watts. Now, those with these two parameters, those vehicle doesn't fall in the motor vehicle act, and hence there is no license, no registration, nothing is required. So the requirement is to keep the weight low so that it will not harm either the driver or somebody who is getting hit by those vehicles. So it is by design. So those vehicles are light, not because there is a fault in it, it is by design it is lighter. And same applies for the three-wheeler also. Most of the three-wheelers are approved either in the L3 category or in the L5 categories. Now, any vehicle which is in the L3 category has to run only up to 25 kilometers an hour. So now when you are running it only up to 25 kilometers an hour and when the approval is given with 4+1 driver, whereas people generally use it beyond that speed and beyond that kind of capacity. So the risk is because of the incorrect usage of the vehicle, not because it is designed like that. So that is the last part of your question. Now coming to the first part of your question as to what are those challenges in order to adopt a new design. See, if you see this industry so far, the growth of this industry is not because government is after the life of the people to adopt this kind of technology. It is the convenience and the cost efficiency which is making this vehicle or this technology being used by the public. So if the things are imposed from the government side, definitely there are a lot of norms that government is start with. Today, if you see the industry, what to talk about the others? The approving authorities are not clear about the various parameters, the various test technologies that are to be used. 4 years down the line, when we started with our first approval, the approving authorities were not very clear about those norms. Now, over the period of time, they are clear. Now, government has issued a notification of the revised parameters of the battery technology, which will be applicable from 1st of October. I am 101% sure government would not be able to implement it from 1st of October because the norms are not at all clear. There is nobody in the industry who is aware about those norms. Government has simply issued a notification and they are expecting all the players to start following those norms, whereas they themselves are not very clear on that. So it is by design what it is happening. If government start imposing certain terms and conditions from the top in order to promote the industry, you can see it. For any industry, there is one regulating authority. Now, for the EV industry, there is no regulating authority at all. This itself shows that government is not very serious about it. It is just that the public are intending to use those vehicles that this industry is getting flourished in the country.
Thank you so much, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Tejas Das. I am from MBSM first year. My question is regarding the four-wheelers that the price of EV vehicles are very high as compared to the IC vehicles. So, considering middle class families, for next 5 to 6 years, I don't think so. The prices fall down to 6 to 10 lakh range. And also middle class families buy the cars in installments. So to pay the full amount, it will take another 3 to 4 years. So it is taking around another 9 to 10 years for middle class families to switch to EV vehicles. And also there is a high chance that during that 20 to 30 years, there is a chance that another developed technology will come into picture and it can change the entire picture of this industry. So how are you tackling those problems or issues?
Sure. So if you see the adoption of electric vehicle in the country, so if if two-wheeler falls within say 10% range of the total new vehicle which are being purchased, and three-wheeler is about 80% of the total new vehicles that are being purchased, the four-wheeler is even less than 1%. Now as you have rightly pointed out, the reason is cost. Now, what companies have coined a new concept is called total cost of ownership. which includes the cost of acquisition and the cost of running and the maintenance of the vehicle over a specific period of time. So this total cost of acquisition for an Indian consumer who is very cost conscious doesn't prove to be a good concept unless and until the difference between the cost of acquiring a non-EV vehicle and the cost of acquiring a EV vehicle varies more than 10% or a 15% type of difference. Whereas the today difference is nearly 33% or even more than that. So unless and until there are technologies, particularly in the battery, because that's the only differentiator, there is no other differentiator. Motor controller, differential, all those things are very common. But what is making it more costlier is the battery technology. And unless and until there are investment by the government or by the large companies on the battery technology, this cost is not gonna be coming down. And unless and until it is gonna be coming down, people would not adopt it, particularly four-wheeler.
So I have one question to Dr. Sanjeev, sir. Sir, I'm staying in Bhubaneswar for past 6 years, and being an avid animal lover, have visited a Nandankanan zoo. I stopped counting after 5 visits, so that many times I have visited the zoo. One thing which had always struck me and had interested me was use of EVs as a service, and Nandankanan Zoo has been doing it for many years. What were the challenges that you faced wherein EVs were used as a service? Many times we see EV being used as a ownership. I mean, I am owning a EV, and we are talking mostly about challenges in that way. But as a service, what challenges Nandankanan faced, and what innovations did Nandankanan came out? It can be on any ground, whether it is economical, environmental, or other aspects.
Thank you. So thank you that you have visited Nandankanan, and I invite you again, not only you, but you all. So in my presentation also, I have just touched on the challenges for maintaining the EV. Is first thing that what he was telling, that proper design, because of n number of designs are there, we are not sure that which is the best vehicle. So whoever that time offered, we have taken. But after that, now for these type of you can say vehicle or machine, that AMC and CMC concept. So annual maintenance as well as the comprehensive maintenance concept. So unfortunately, nobody is giving that you can say promise that if your vehicle, including our toy train, which recently we have commissioned, so nobody is giving that whenever your things will be need either repair or replacement, we will ready to provide. That is one major challenge. Second, you can say what he was telling, the battery part and skill manpower to repair, and how to check all the batteries life and other things is also little bit you can say we face a lot of challenges for the two-wheelers also, for the you can say battery operated vehicles also, and now for the toy train also. And surely the safari services, so far we have not gone for the electric buses, because just we are watching that now Bhubaneswar, lot of electric buses have recently procured and now running. So we are also watching that the performance of the electric buses, and then we'll introduce the buses, and then only we'll get some what are the challenges for the electric buses. I think
one small question. previously the EV service was in a way wherein somebody goes and books the EV completely and it takes around and it comes back. Now it has changed, like the operations have changed. So what is the logic?
Earlier, like EV on you can say the rental basis or reserve EV. So for our Jew, because of you can say the circulation path is like that we cannot afford more than you can say more than 30 to 40 EVs at a one time. So our visitors number, especially in the afternoon and in the festive season, those goes beyond you can say our not carrying capacity, but at least carrying capacity for the electric vehicles. Because if you if you are following the news and other things, so last in 2018-19 on Christmas Day, in one day 55,000 people. So it is very difficult to even you can say walk. So these vehicles and what already he told that drivers, the technicians, they are not following the proper speed. So there will be always chance of the accidents. So we have shifted like that with 80 rupees per trip. So you have to get down at BOV stop 1, then see the enclosures nearby. Then again you have to come back either on BOV stop number 1 or 2, and then go to the BOV. But for the again it is an inconvenience to the elderly people or many visitors, those who have more paying capacity. So now recently for the families we have started again based on the economics, because of the very high cost of investment in the EV. So like 1,000 rupees per hour. So you can book the EV. So surely the cost is a little bit higher side, but that higher side is mainly due to the initial investment of the licensee for the EV. Once it will be goes down, then we are just seeing the economics and for getting more such data only, I ask that if somebody is willing to do the internship on these aspects, then we will get the very clear picture, and that will be the you can say guiding force for the state government also, that if we have to put the charging rent BOV on rent, so how much it will be actual, or you can say the actual rent which we prescribe, because so far there is no what he already told, there is no policy or nothing that how much per hour we should charge for the even the charging your electric vehicles. Everybody is like either it is a monopoly or it is just some fictitious pictures. So in our multi-level car parking also, now we can at one time 600 cars can be parked in at one time. So if there are more vehicles are coming, and some economics will get that this is the economics for the charging per hour. So we can prescribe to the state government to at least follow for the tourism.
Thanks. Our last question for the day comes from Mr. Digvijay Deshpande. So he asks, wouldn't the economical advantage enjoyed by the customers under the FAME scheme be overshadowed due to the extra cost of battery replacement after 5 to 6 years of the vehicle purchase? Additionally, is something being done to set up a battery recycling facilities by the companies to ensure EVs are more green than they are today? And if you can put some context within the battery swapping policy that has been proposed.
So first question is battery replacement after 5 to 6 years. So if you look at new models, I refer to Nexon. So we offer an 8-year battery warranty. So this question of 5 to 6 years is now a bit old. And as we move on better and better technologies, you will see that EV battery is actually having a longer life. So you probably won't be required to replace a battery for all the usable purpose, usable lifetime of the vehicle. So you'll soon, while there are definitely certain models out there for which you would require to change, but it's an evolving technology. We have to realize that. So 5 to 6 years now is definitely an old question. We have been offering 8 years warranty, I think past 2 to 3 years now. So that question is sorted. But nevertheless, going forward, you see more and more higher, let's say less, batteries that go for lifetime of the vehicle. So that question is taken care of. Then the second question is around recycling facilities. Yes, definitely, and most definitely. At least at Tata Motors, we are actually in the process of building 17 different RVSFs, reclamation centers, where we are not only thinking about recycling of batteries, but actually to reuse them in a much more better way. So even when the batteries are not fit for automotive consumption, it still has got about 40 to 50% of its usable life left. So probably recycling is still a waste of that the amount of energy that went into building those batteries. So we are finding new purposes to it. So for example, let's say we are talking about renewables and the challenge that Morning Ashwini ma'am spoke about with renewables, that they are not predictable. So you cannot predict whether the sun will rise today or what is the amount of wind that will flow. So storage becomes very much critical if you are switching from conventional power to renewable powers. And in that case, currently the storage cost is very high. It costs about, I think, if you look at life cycle total LCOA, cost of batteries, it's about 100 or $120 per kWh, something like that. So to bring that down, we would need these batteries back. We would probably repurpose it for storage of RE business, RE renewable energies, and then probably drive more benefit out of it than just recycling. So just a small extension. So in line with this, what we have done, we are actually building a framework around circularity. So there is a lot of work being done right now, and it's actually under the works, where we are defining with each component, and it's not only battery. So even the dashboard or even the bumpers. So once a vehicle is sold or scrapped, can that bumper be reused? Can that bumper be designed so that some components of that bumper can be put in after some amount of refurbishment can be put back into the new vehicle? So a lot of work being done on on circularity, on the pillars of circularity, and definitely recycling battery or finding a better repurposing a battery is one of the topmost priority that we are having.
Yeah, so Sandarshi has already mentioned about four-wheeler. I would like to touch upon the two-wheeler and the three-wheeler aspect on it. So as I mentioned earlier, also in case we are able to bring down the cost of acquisition of an electric vehicle, at least at par with the ICE vehicle, then only the economies that we are saving on the running and the maintenance of an electric vehicle can compensate the additional cost of replacement of battery after the period of 3 to 5 years. Now, the battery technology that is being used in the two-wheeler and the three-wheeler segment, particularly in the lithium, it involves two types of chemical. One is called the NMC, the other is called the LFP. Now, NMC typically has a charge life of about 800 cycles, which means you can charge them at up to 800 times or maybe slightly more or slightly less than that. Whereas the LFP has a charge life of about 2000 cycles, which means you can charge it up to 2000 times over the life of the battery. So with that, in case the user is using our NMC battery correctly, then it will run up to 3 years, for which we provide the warranty of the battery. And in case of LFP, it would run up to 6 years. Now thereafter, you will have to replace it. And only if the cost of acquisition is lower or at par with the ICE vehicle, the cost of replacement would compensate with the cost of saving that you are doing by the lower running and maintenance cost.
So thank you everyone. Thank you for your insightful thoughts. I'd just like to close by saying that while the transition to EVs is, we all recognize the importance of it, it is important that we do not rush into this, and that we have a clear and important, clear laid out roadmap to make this transition smooth. This not only hinges on building an ecosystem that incentivizes battery manufacturing, assembly, charging infrastructure, and importantly, battery disposal. This transition cannot be successful without simultaneously achieving decarbonization of the grid as well. We are also seeing that exploring opportunities with other fuels such as hydrogen can be a significant catalyst for increased adoption of electric vehicles. We should also be cognizant of the government initiatives such as the hydrogen mission, the same scheme, and electric vehicle mobility plan, which can significantly drive and help drive the ecosystem development. With this, I would like to thank all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Anamaya, for moderating the event, and a heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speakers who took out their precious time to grace this event.
From this platform, we would like to extend a heartfelt gratitude to Dion Automotives Private Limited for your commitment in making this event a grand success. Now, I would like to invite on stage two of their gentlemen and facilitate them from the school. So please, and I would like to request the two gentlemen from Dion Automotives to come out on stage to be facilitated. Thank you, sir. Thank you, gentlemen. Now, I would like to invite Abhishek Shur on stage. He will be reading out a message from Dion Automotives for their sponsorship. Please, Abhishek.
Thank you, Manshi. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, sponsors. Thank you, Dion Motors, for making it happen this time. And I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to you. And they are basically the dealers of Tata Motors EV in Bhubaneswar, Cuttack, and Puri. They have their charging infrastructure in more than 25 different unit areas. And since 2020 in Odisha, Dion Automotives have put up their EV lineup to facilitate the trade for EV automobiles. And they have also come up with the display vehicles, which you guys can have a look at. We have with us Mr. Trinath Rath, who is the leader of Dion Motors EV team. So he would be explaining you more about the functionalities of an EV and how it works. We request everyone to kindly be there after lunch. And today it's there in the XMB premises, the EV products, and you can experience it, look at it, and also have test drives. Yeah, so thank you. So I would now like to call upon Munshi to deliver the vote of thanks.
So it's a mission and vision of our school to build network of delegates all around the world for a more successful event like this. So please you'll pleased to know that our school is going to collaborate more in the future for these events that will be coming up in the future. You are truly appreciated and thank you. Now, Monica will be taking care.
We now mark a conclusion to this year's Parivartan. This was truly a fruitful discussion that gave us valuable insights into the EV industry. We look forward to more such events in the upcoming years of Parivartan. And I thank everyone here for their gracious presence. I now request Anshul Anand, Student Coordinator of ConXerv, to propose the vote of thanks. And I also urge everyone to stay back for a photograph session after the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Anshul Anand, the student coordinator of ConXerv. I am very glad that I have been given this opportunity to conduct and coordinate Parivartan 2022, the annual sustainability business conclave. The audience have been wonderful. The discussions were very enriching, and they help us in clarifying a lot of doubts and questions, and also gave us that what is the future perspective of electric vehicles and how it complements sustainability in the practical business world. I take time to thank all my wonderful audiences, my fellow colleagues and my peers, the faculty community, the extended university community, the registrar's office, the accounts office, the support staff, and each and every person who has enabled us to make this event possible. I am very grateful to Mr. Anamaya Chaturvedi our alumni who has traveled from Mumbai, honored our invite and came as a moderator of the conclave. I would also like to thank to all the speakers for providing their insights on the topic and helping us in making the conclave a success. Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely evening. Thank you.